Research from the British Board of Film Classification has shown that people are increasingly likely to use strong swear words in their everyday life. I'm sort of worried now that there's been a camera in my house when nobody's looking, but there you are. The body which gives age ratings to films says about a third of people in the UK are more likely to use strong swear words than 5 years ago. It does this research? I've probably never met any in my family, but there you are. But the research found parents did not want age restrictions weakened for swearing in movies and DVDs. Well, gosh darn. Parents wanted to protect children, and according to the research, it says this, for as long as possible. So to keep them from those four-letter horrors as long as they possibly can. And joining me to discuss this is, well, Her Ladyship, an absolute paragon of refinement. It's Lady Colin Campbell, royal author extraordinaire, jungle resident, and somebody who really is a bastion of good manners. Lady Colin Campbell, swearing, what's your view? Is there ever an excuse for it?
I think you should only swear if you are expressing yourself emotionally. I think a swear word is not a very good substitute for a poor vocabulary. And, people using the certain words, every other word in a sentence, I think is a sign of a poor vocabulary and a lazy man. Having said that, I think if you are very angry and you want to, just blow off steam, it's a perfectly valid way of going about things.
Well, I wonder about that, Lady Colin Campbell, because there are some acceptable ones. I mean, you can't really imagine the Queen, who must from time to time get a little bit cross, using any of the, let's call them the big ones, the ones that begin with F or, goodness me, I need to pause and take a breath for a second. But there's no way that even if the corgis were to poo in her slippers that she's going to shout the C word, and I suspect she's had cause for it, and I'm confident you don't even know what that word is, Lady Colin Campbell. But, you've got darn and gosh and goodness me. I mean, why can't you use them if you're emotional? Those are the ones I use.
Well, I think they're not very expressive, I mean, Princess Anne, for instance, is very well known to swear like a sailor, as did the Duke of Edinburgh, and as indeed do all of the other royals.
Well, didn't she once tell a group of reporters to naff off? I mean, that's not really swearing, that's useful.
No, except the naff began with an F.
Ah, I see. Okay, so that wasn't exactly what was said. Let's just extend the discussion for a second. I listened to a story the other day, Lady Colin Campbell. It was about the late Queen Mum. And she was having lunch with a group of Americans, and somebody had the gall to speak to the Queen Mum without having been spoken to first. And you, as an etiquette expert, will know that was a total no-no. And this person at the lunch said to the Queen Mum, Your Majesty, or Ma'am, I suppose she would have said, what do you think the most important thing is when bringing up children? Everyone looked at this person at horror because they'd spoken to the Queen Mum without being asked first. And they're about to pull this woman away when the Queen Mother stopped and paused for a second and says, no, it's fine. And she said, without missing a beat, she said, I think it's manners. I think if you teach your children manners, they can get through anything in life. Don't you think swearing is really a representation or an example of an absence of manners, and manners are really important?
I agree with you. I think manners are very important. In fact, in 1986, I published a book called Lady Colin Campbell's Guide to Being a Modern Lady. And one of the things that encouraged me to write it was that I had previously written a book on philosophy. And I saw that, there is a lot of linkage between good manners and good philosophy.
Oh.
And I think good manners are very important. I have always emphasized to my children that good manners are so important that they're more important the closer you are to someone. And in fact, I have nothing against being deliberately rude to someone, but I do have a lot against people being not deliberately rude. Good manners.
What do you mean not?
You are only rude.
What are the circumstances? I'm never rude. I'm being perfect I mean, I have to tell you it's exhausting, but when are the circumstances when it is okay to be rude to somebody? When should you be rude to somebody, and when should you swear at them?
Well, I think you should swear at them when, for instance, I swore at Duncan and Tony in the jungle. I think you should swear at people in that sort of situation because, really, there's hardly any point in expecting illiterates to understand the finer points of etiquette or indeed the language. And if people beg for it, sometimes you should give it to them, preferably between the eyes and in the teeth, but not literally, figuratively speaking. And I think a very good insult, but sometimes swearing is the quickest way of doing it. But really, the best way of doing it is, for instance, when I told Brian Friedman that he was, I won't repeat it.
Well, I was going to say, careful, we are at lunchtime. I don't know. I always think, I think you're probably right, that most of the time there's always an alternative word that you can grapple with. And it's not necessarily a sign of an unintelligent and uneducated mind. Some of the best authors have swearing throughout their literature. I can think of a number of books and some great films and even opera where they have Fs and all sorts of things littered about the place. But I do think it relates to manners and how people are treated. And, you said you wrote a book on manners and it's connected to philosophy. But for me, now more than ever, we need to be thinking about this lady, Colin Campbell. There's a story that you'll probably be aware of about Edward VII. And he was at his table. And I think it was an African potentate who hadn't been to the UK before and hadn't really experienced all of the etiquette involved in dining. And they bought finger bowls between the courses. And this leader picked up the finger bowl and started drinking from it. And without missing a beat, Edward VII picked up his finger bowl and also drank from it. And the reason for that is he wanted people to feel, and this particular person to feel comfortable. And one of the things that matters more than ever, it seems to me, in fact I'm sure of it, is that whenever you meet somebody, you want them to feel better than when they found you. And I think swearing rather interrupts with that, don't you think?
Well, swearing does not help on... But I quite agree. Good manners do require that you make people feel comfortable and you make people feel at home. And indeed, if somebody makes a mistake, it is very bad manners to correct them. Mm-hmm. Unless, of course, it's somebody who doesn't speak English well and they've asked you to correct them when they make a mistake. That's different. But otherwise, it's the height of poor form to actually correct somebody when they commit a faux pas or a linguistic error or whatever.
Well, Lady Colin Campbell, it has been a privilege and a delight to talk to you. And I know how well-mannered your boys are because I've had the privilege of meeting them and they are a credit to you. That being said, I am a little bit worried that any one of my family members listening to this is going to be exploding my phone saying that I swear all the time. I'm sorry. It's true. I do from time to time get very angry. And just from time to time, that lovely word will do. It's the only word that matters. And it's so delightful when you can deploy it and it really does apply. I think you at home know the word that I'm referring to. It's marvellous. Thank you, Lady Colin Campbell, royal author extraordinaire, philosopher, as we've discovered as well.